What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, ES, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some big factors involving the markets, what's going on with the charts moving forward, and what you should be watching for as time goes on with the news and such. But let me just mention that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. Anyways, let's talk about the market. What on earth is going on? In my previous video, I gave you guys a more medium-term projection of what the market will likely do, and I suggested that the market would likely see some more upside, and there could be a lower high to be made on SPY and many of these tickers relative to the high we had right over here at this 555 area. So, in my opinion, okay, that was a more medium-term projection about the possible lower high that could be being made compared to this high up here. But in this video, I want to focus on just Monday. I want to focus on the very, very short term. So please don't confuse these videos. Yes, one video is talking about how for the medium term, we could be like pumping a little bit and seeing a potential rejection. It is a possibility. And then this video is going to be about that pump that we're going to likely see for the short term. I'm going to go more short term in this one, and then I'm going to break down some data. So the reason why it's very important to have short term projections is because of how the market is volatile, how the market is dictated by so many catalysts. So approaching Tuesday and Wednesday, I want you guys to know this. Tuesday, we have PPI data coming out, wholesale inflation that could shift this uptrend in the markets. Right now, SPY had this low at 507. We had a higher high, higher low around 515. Then we're continuing to push. So we're going to likely push higher for the time being. Okay, going into tomorrow, the market's going to most likely go higher. That's what the charts are suggesting. So long as there's no bad news, we are favoring the upside. Now, that could shift depending on PPI, depending on CPI and such. CPI also comes out on Wednesday, so we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, we're not really too worried about PPI and CPI yet. We're just going to focus on Monday. What's happening for Monday? And the answer is at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, a couple of hours after the market opens, we have the 3 and 6 month bill auctions coming out. This may lead to some volatility. But approaching all this data, the market's looking more bullish for now, and we are favoring a little bit more upside. I'll show you guys the charts in just a few minutes. For earnings, just know that we actually have Monday.com on Monday, not to mention TerraWolf and just a few others. Not too much is coming out for Monday. For Tuesday, we have the Home Depot coming out. For Wednesday, we have Dole in the morning, not to mention Cisco. For Thursday, we have Alibaba and Walmart in the morning, and a few more as time goes on. But I just want to say that right now, the charts are still looking very interesting approaching this data. Just so you guys know, there's a 50-50 chance of the Fed giving us either a 25 or 50 basis point cut. The market's kind of indecisive between this, depending on a lot of data. And what's going to shift this is going to be the CPI report. So this is going to move depending on CPI. That's why it's super important. It's going to have a big effect on the markets. The catalyst I've been talking about is what could be happening in the Middle East. I just want to say that right now, at the time of recording this video, there is no evidence that there's been this like major attack just yet. I'm not really seeing that quite yet. So I just have to say that the market doesn't really have that major catalyst, this Middle East catalyst, to really cause a temporary dip. We're not seeing that quite yet, and this gives the market the freedom for more upside. Now, I hope this doesn't happen ultimately, and hopefully that we don't get anything too crazy. But if it does happen, be prepared just in case. As of right now, it hasn't happened, so this gives the market more freedom to try to push. Sentiment is extremely fearful. Everyone's trying to short the markets. People are going crazy. The market, however, is starting to shift in the opposite direction, hurting the bears. So I think we might see a continuation of that going into tomorrow, just temporarily. For momentum, we're at fear. This might get closer to neutral as we're trying to reclaim our 125 daily moving average. And then also, the puts and call option positioning hit extreme fear. Fear hit the high. So I want to see if this ends up dipping lower, because if fear does start to slow down a bit, the market's going to also see a little bit of a shift. When we hit peak fear, very close to that 1.0 area in the 5-day average, the market does tend to see a little bit of a recovery. That's what started so far. It could just be a temporary recovery, though. There's no guarantee it's going to last forever. The VIX may get another spike later on, but for now, we are looking a little bit more bearish, and this could give the market more upside, just temporarily as well. So for the option chain for SPY, whoopsie daisy, I'm not really seeing a whole lot that's going on with it, at least for now. Especially when looking at these strikes. There's a lot of interest in this 535 strike, at least for tomorrow. So I find that to be a little bit interesting, especially as open interest is increasing the most. So there's been some interest in that when looking at big orders. So that does open the possibility of more upside too. So what do I see for the charts? Once again, guys, temporarily, the market is looking more bullish for now. If SPY were to hypothetically lose this 529 area, our 20 EMA. Notice how we tested this on the 4-hour on Friday, only to bounce off of this. But if we lose this green line right here, this 529 area, there's going to be a risk of us dipping all the way down towards 525 or lower. Now, if we push higher, you're going to be looking at resistance at 535. Breakdown, there's going to be a bigger push towards our gap resistance. We'll get close to 538, if not that 540 area to fill this gap. So I want to keep the charts very simple. What is the most likely possibility for tomorrow? What am I favoring? So now that you guys know the levels, right? If you lose 529, look for a dip. If we break 535, we turn more bullish. In my personal opinion for tomorrow, we are most likely going to be pushing for 535. I think that's going to likely come. There might be a lot of consolidation, but I think there might be a little push and attempt to get here towards the end of the day. I think 535 might be tested, and if we break that, look for 538, then 540 for a temporary push. Now, we may temporarily push up higher, but there could be a big rejection depending on CPI on like Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, I just want to say that the charts are favoring the upside, especially when you look at SPY on bigger timeframes like the daily. The daily is also looking more bullish on the PPO. We still have these gaps to fill. I think this gap resistance is going to be tested at 535. If that breaks, we have this other gap to fill up here. So we are favoring upside as of right now. I think SPY is going to push temporarily. So be prepared for that, at least for tomorrow, as the most likely move. For Nvidia, I know a lot of people are interested in this. Nvidia has a very similar trend. We had this low down here around 90, made a higher high, higher low. We haven't been able to crack this high, but we are trying to uptrend because we're making higher lows. So watch this area of interest at 104. Nvidia is liking to kind of shuffle around there. If we hold above that, I'd be looking for basically 108. 108 is going to be our next potential target. If we lose 104, look for 102. And if that fails, there's going to be a bigger dip down to this imbalance, which I think takes us all the way down to at least 99. However, this chart is favoring upside. We're making higher lows, like I said, so we are favoring 104 to hold and us eventually push for 108 or higher. So a little bit of a pop on Nvidia just to start off tomorrow. Now, just know I'm not saying this is going to last forever, just for the time being. That's what the chart is suggesting. Bitcoin is looking like it's dipping a bit, but we might dip a little bit more towards 58,000, the lower 58,000s. Then we'll be looking for a dip off this support right over here. This also aligns with this imbalance. So a little bit of a dip and then maybe a bounce on Bitcoin is a strong possibility. For ES, or the futures out there, right now the market's kind of flat for futures, but we're kind of consolidating at this 50 EMA. So if 5360 holds, I think that this is going to be pushing all the way up towards at least 5400 just for the first level. And we have to lose 5326, our 20 EMA, to turn bearish. If that breaks, we'll be dipping all the way down towards the 5300 flat area. Looking at this move, we're making higher highs and higher lows. So I think there's a good chance we continue higher towards at least 5400. So I think ES is looking more bullish. For SPX, if we end up losing 5300, there's going to be a dip all the way down towards 5250. And if we hold above 5350, there'll be a bigger push up towards right over here, this 5380 area. This is going to be our first gap resistance. If we break that 5380, if that breaks, we're going to likely push higher. I think that SPX will test at least 5380 by tomorrow or within 2 days. So we favor a little bit of a push to the least gap resistance, if not to fill that gap. So we look a little bit more bullish for now. This could fail afterwards, okay? It could fail later on, but as of right now, we're looking a little bit more bullish from a technical standpoint, in my opinion. Tesla's looking pretty good too. What I like about Tesla is the fact that we're making a higher low relative to this low. So we dumped down to 180, we came back up, and then we made a higher low. We have an inverse head and shoulders set up. Look for a test of 200.96 tomorrow. If that breaks on the 4 hour, we're easily going all the way back up towards 205 plus, if not all the way up closer to like 210. If we reject off our 20 EMA at 200, we fail to hold it. Be careful. Then there's 198 I'd be watching for, followed by 195. If 195 fails on Tesla, there's going to be a risk of downside. So watch those levels. But just know that Tesla is favoring upside through a break of 200 all the way up to 208. I also like this setup because when you really zoom out, guys, okay, I'm going to be 100% honest. We look really nice on Tesla because we have a nice inverse head and shoulders like structure. There's going to be a nice rally coming to Tesla, in my opinion, as we get closer to the end of the year. This setup is very bullish looking to me if you actually zoom out of this and look at this. So yes, the medium to long term is looking very bullish for Tesla. Short term looks a little bit more bullish, but I'm not saying the move is going to last forever, so we'll just have to see what happens for the shorter term. If Tesla pumps and rejects, we don't know yet. But for now, temporarily, okay, just for now, we look like we want to push a little higher. We do favor that looking at this trend. For NQ, for futures out there, NQ is looking pretty good in my opinion as well. You You can see how it has a very, very similar setup as ES. If we were to hypothetically lose 18,423, specifically that level, this will dip all the way down towards at least 18,200, if not lower. And if we manage to hold above 18,580, this will easily start pushing up higher. If we hold that, yes, we'll start pushing, and we'll be looking at this previous support becoming resistance around 18,800, around that area. So I think with this low here, we're coming up, making a higher low and continuing to push, and we favor the upside a little bit more into the higher 18,000 area. So we look more bullish on NQ, in my personal opinion. For the QQQ, same setup as SPY. It looks almost identical. Temporarily, we are looking more bullish. We had the slowdown here at 420, came all the way up, made a higher low, and now we're trying to push higher. What I like about this is this setup is looking at potentially testing 454. This is where our gap resistance happens to be. I think that our 50 EMA is going to align with this, so I think it's going to be testing that. If we lose 446.5, we'll be looking for a dip back down to 444. And if that fails, we'll turn a little bit more bearish. But just know that so far that looks very, very unlikely. So I just want to at least account for the bearish case. That looks less likely. We look like we're favoring at least this gap resistance touch of 454, around that area. Break that, then we're going to fill this gap up towards about 456. So we still favor getting to the mid 450s. We did a good job of closing above 450 on Friday, so looking pretty good on QQQ. Aapl looks pretty bullish because we're trying to hold above this 50 EMA. If we lose 215, okay, Apple's going to go back down to 213. If that fails, we're turning bearish. If we hold above 215, we favor the upside. In my opinion, this is favoring the upside because we had a bullish wedge that formed. And I remember calling this out on Thursday. We had this nice wedge, so I favored upside on Aapl. And I think that we're going to fill this gap up here, or at least attempt to do so as long as we hold above 215. I'll be looking for basically 219. So we favor upside, but we'll see if this move lasts. So just be very mindful of that. But so far, like I said, we favor upside. For Palantir got a nice break right over here. I did call out these levels earlier. I'm not going to worry about them specifically. I like the chart. It's looking a little bit more bullish, testing 30. We'll see if 30 breaks. It's going to be a tough resistance, but the chart still remains bullish. It is possible we grab liquidity at around 29.5 all over again, but we're going to likely try to continue to hold. If we push for 30 and we hold above that, I'll be looking for more upside. So far, so good. For Supermicro, we're looking a little more bearish. We've been on a very, very big downtrend, but that depends if we could hold this 480 support. So the chart looks a little more bearish. We might temporarily try to get back up towards that 520 area. And for that, if that breaks, I'll be looking for 544, but then it could reject again and continue to dip. So the trend is more bearish. And here's the thing I'm noticing about Supermicro, okay? We came close to our 20 EMA and rejected. We touched our 20 EMA, rejected, touched our 20 EMA, went a little higher than rejected. So I'm going to be looking for a touch of our 20 EMA. 540. I think it's going to try to bounce a little bit, but then there could be a rejection again. The trend is still bearish. So keep that in the back of your guys' minds. Rivian, just completely trading sideways. Make sure you look at resistance at 14.37. Look at support down here around 13.3. We're just consolidating. I think that this trend is a little weaker, but as you guys can see, it's getting tighter. So what I presume is going to happen is this. I think what it's going to do is it's going to form a wedge here, and it's just going to get very, very tight. I think it's just going to consolidate. So I'm not really seeing a whole lot that's going on with this. I presume it's just going to consolidate for now, and then we'll have to look for a break later on. For SoFi, same setup, very similar setup. I think this is also going to get very, very tight. Resistance is at 6.7, support around 6.2. I think it's just going to shuffle in between, not really do a whole lot. IWM might try to push higher. It depends if we can try to break past 207 to 208. If we break that, I'll be looking for 210 plus. If we reject here, if we lose 205, I'll be looking for a dip back down to 203. What I do like is when we had this low here, made a higher high, came down, made another higher low. Sorry, made a higher low. Excuse me, guys. We made a higher low, and we could be making a higher low again. So I think what could be forming is a little wedge like this, and we might just continue to consolidate and eventually try to break through this. So it's very possible we try to form a structure like this and we eventually try to break. So it might come down a bit, consolidate, and start pushing a little higher just temporarily before something else. AMD looks a little bullish temporarily as well. I think that's also kind of consolidating like in Nvidia, but it might try to favor upside as we're making higher lows. So the higher lows are being established like this, and I think that it might get a little tighter. But I think that this might try to break through them and eventually try to push higher just temporarily. So look for some consolidation around 136 and maybe a little break higher because the trend is a little bit more bullish. So we'll see. Coinbase looks a little decent right now. Got a nice structure, similar structure as SPY, how we made a higher low. This also depends on Bitcoin. If we lose 190, I'd be looking for a dip down towards 183. If we break past 200, we're going to be looking for a push for at least 209. So I think it's going to kind of look like this, where we're forming like this nice little wedge, getting tighter, and then we're going to eventually break out. So I'll see if that ends up being the case. For Amazon, we have a nice structure as we're trying to hold up. I'll be looking at 167 as our key level. If we hold above this, I'd be looking for a push all the way up to fill this gap towards 171. If we lose 167, I'd be looking for a dip all the way down towards 163. But this chart is favoring upside. As long as you hold 167, I'd be looking for this gap fill towards 171. For Meta, we look a little bit more bullish. What I like about this setup is the fact that it looks symmetrical. If we were to lose this 5 right over here, this 512 area, we'd be dipping down to 500. If we hold above where we currently are, 515, I think we're going all the way up to at least 525. The structure looks bullish. If you look at this, we have a triple bottom, nice looking accumulation. It's favoring 525 plus, looks bullish to me, as long as we hold support. Microsoft looks a little bit more bullish because it's consolidating nicely. I think it might slowly try to get up towards at least 410. If we were to lose 404, there's going to be a dip, but this is favoring upside. Google's also favoring upside a little bit more. If we break past 166, I'd be looking for the gap fill for 168. And if we lose 164, we'd be looking for a dip. This is favoring upside. For a few more, okay, DJT, for those who are interested, it's still hovering below its 20 EMA. It's just consolidating very tightly. Unless we break 26.63, it could push higher for 27. And if we don't do so, we're just going to consolidate. So that's all I'm seeing for now, not really a whole lot. The VIX is on a bit of a downtrend, might dip a little bit lower to fill this gap. So I think the VIX may dip because the market may push a bit. But the VIX might get another spike as we have this big gap to fill. And that means the market might get a rejection later on. Later, not tomorrow, just later on. So temporarily, the market may push upwards, and then there might be a later on little move to the downside. Don't worry about it just for now. For now, the market still looks a little more bullish. The 10 year is going up. It's going to move depending on CPI and also the Fed. And the dollar's just kind of like it's trying to push, but it's kind of consolidating at the same time, not really doing much. So I think it may consolidate a bit as the market tries to push, but then this could see a big spike again, depending on what happens in Japan, also depending on what happens around the world and with the Fed. So for now, my thesis is favoring upside. I think the market is favoring going up just temporarily, just for tomorrow. That's how we're looking approaching the big data for PPI and CPI. And then whether or not it continues depends on CPI and such. But I still think that there is a risk of the market establishing a lower high compared to our ultimate highs from before. So like for SPY, I'm talking about 555, excuse me. We may make a lower high compared to that later on. So we'll just have to wait and see. We're not ready yet to reject. So the market is still favoring upside for now. So we're just going to play the charts for now and just be very, very unbiased. Okay, so with that being said, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'll see you guys tomorrow before the market opens. Until then, have a great day and peace out.